Hi YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars. So I've been asked so many times for this, and now all of the new ones are released. Let's go through what the Plus models are and aren't and the differences between all these radios. I'll do my best to cover every single thing that is different with them, and yeah, then you can make your mind up which one's for you. Right, so first off, what are all the transmitters? So we've got the original MB4, the original MB4 Pro, then we got the Pro Plus and the MB4 Plus. So what's the idea with the Plus radios? The best way that I can explain it is these are not designed to be a brand new generation of transmitter. They are a refresh of these. So just the same way as you might get a facelift model of a Ford Fiesta, or you may get a sort of mid-term refresh of a PlayStation 5 and they'll bring out a PlayStation Slim that's got slightly reduced nanometer on the processor so it runs a bit cooler, so you get a bit more performance. They might add a few software features. That's the sort of deal with this. The main thing, if you're looking at buying a new one, these aren't manufactured anymore. You're only going to be looking at these two, the Plus models. So these are no longer in production. Any of these that you see for sale, the only reason I would buy one of these is if it's heavily discounted, because there are parts of these that are quite a big difference in what they actually do. Main differences between all these: your original ones, micro USB, and the new ones, USB-C. You've got the battery, that to change the internal battery on these, you're taking a few screws out and splitting the case to get to the 18650. On the Pro models, you can just pull this little cover off, little rubber trim, and then the 18650 comes out behind it. The USB-C functionality does bring another bunch of sort of options where through the USB connection you can now have head tracking capabilities. Obviously it's USB-C, so a lot more charge cables around nowadays. A lot of mobile phones are USB-C. And it can also do trainer mode, where you can link two transmitters up, use one as master, one as slave. So if you're training somebody, also an option for you. Model memories have been increased, so the new ones get 5 extra. So these are 20. The Pro, the MB4 Plus models are 25 model memories. One major difference is the brightness of the screen. So not only is it a more colourful display on the MB4 Plus from the MB4, you've got a lot brighter display. Now these are all set on 50%, and they're all set not to go into like a lower brightness state. It's a very difficult thing for me to do, to show you how much brighter this is outdoors than this on a digital camera, because the digital camera will try and correct the screen and it'll just darken it down. So the only thing I can say is go into a hobby store and just have a look at it on maximum brightness. So if we take these up to 100%, it'll just blow it out on camera. But this at 100%, although it's bright white, it's very hard to tell the difference between them on a digital camera. But the Plus model screen is an awful lot brighter. But I'll try and get these to 50% just so they're all the same, and you might stand a chance of being able to see what's going off on screen of them, because digital cameras don't like bright LCD screens. So there's quite a number of differences in what they'll do, as in going from the MB4 to the new Plus model. So we'll cover them first. Big difference, wheel design. You do get the removable battery without taking screws out on the Plus. You've got USB-C, you've got head tracking, you've got the trainer mode, and then if we start working through some of these menus, so you've got the ability to name the actual channels. So these are both set on my TRX4, but if you notice, if we change the diffs or anything, you've just got the bars, whereas if we change the diff position on the Plus, you've got actual channel labels. So certainly for a crawler or anything like that, probably a worthwhile upgrade. It is a very useful thing to have. Plus with a crawler you're generally outside more, so being able to see this much brighter screen, probably more use to you. The battery in the actual handle on the Plus is bigger as well, but I think the actual channel names and channel labeling functionality, it's quite a big thing if you've got a crawler with a load of different options on. If we hop into the RX menu, so we've got these both set on enhanced, so you'll see the enhanced features as we go through stuff here. So RX interface, protocol, pretty much same on them both. Your failsafe, servo frequency, so they're both capable of doing exactly the same. Your iBus and everything is pretty much identical on them both, so not an awful lot that's different in there. If we flick through some other menus, we've still got throttle curve, which you can change on them both. There's no great difference in that. Your engine cut and everything, SVC. So we still get the exact same options on there. You're not gaining anything for that. Still got boat mode. Main difference is trainer. But yeah, there's not an awful lot of difference. But the differences that they have made, it is quite big with the screen. Trainer mode, not really sure anybody will ever use that on a ground RC. Head tracking, again, doubtful that anybody'd ever find any use for it on a ground RC, but certainly the far brighter screen, bigger battery and handle, quick release battery, convenience around USB-C, and the channel labels is quite a big thing. Again, if we're looking at the Pro to the Pro Plus, you've got a far brighter screen. You've still got all the 18 channels and everything, that doesn't change. You have got the removable handle sort of cover, so you can get to USB, so you can get to 18650, sorry, without taking screws out. You do have a much nicer wheel, so we get the nice wheel design. One big thing I've noticed, the quality of the foam on that wheel, on the new one. Certainly, I've never had a problem using the original, but this foam feels absolutely amazing. You've still got all the options of doing the channel labeling, so that follows across. Also does head tracking and the trainer mode, so that's all the same. We do have the much brighter screen, is probably the biggest reason that I would say the new Plus model is way better. Other than that, there's very little that changes. Going from the Plus to the Pro Plus, you do have quite a few extras on this. Not only does the transmitter itself come with a whole bunch of different triggers, the carry case, the wireless charging, because the Pros are both wireless charge bases. So not only do you get that, you do get some options on this that the MB4 Plus doesn't have. So if we go into functionality to assign functions to buttons, on the Pro you can assign 2, whereas on the MB4 Plus, if we go in, you've only got 1 function that you can assign. So even if I change it to 3 position, you can only assign 1 function, Whereas on the Pro, if you wanted to control a channel but also add an extra function to it, you can go in and you can set any of the functionality. So you can have any of these options. So if you wanted to enable sort of ABS and a mix on one button, that's an option. On the Pro, not an option on the MB4. So it's going to be sort of a niche thing, but it's definitely something that the Pro can do that the MB4 Plus can't. There's also, if we go through, so if we look on the MB4 Plus, you don't have conditions or logic. So conditions let you set a button to turn the conditions on and off, and then you can set a separate different functionality for all these options. So you can have different dual rate, curve, channel speed, ABS, trims, and at the touch of a button you can turn this on. So if you are racing and you're racing outdoors and the track conditions change, or you're racing indoors, which I've experienced quite a lot, the difference in grip from the beginning of the night on an indoor track to when you get to final is huge. You can have, at the touch of a button, a whole bunch of different settings that suit that change in track condition. That's not a feature on the MB4 Plus or the MB4. It is on the standard Pro. But yeah, that comes in very useful, especially in racing. Because I have seen a few people say for racing, what's the difference between them? That's kind of a game changer. You can have two lots of settings and just one button and it flicks between them. Also, you've got logic switches. So with this, you can tell it to look for one switch, another switch, and then you can get it to do a different output depending on the input of both these. So the relationships are and or not. So basically, you can have a function, and then an output, which there is quite some complicated setups that you can do once you've got access to logic switches, and you do have two of these which you can use. So especially on more advanced crawler setups and things like that, it does give you some of the functionality that like the flight controllers have, because a lot of them, and especially if you've seen me videos on EdgeTX, they've got logic switches and they can be very useful to trigger certain things. But yeah, just something to be aware of. Also on the Pro, you've got the fuel. So for nitros or fuel RCs, you can put in all the info basically, and it'll work out how long or how much fuel you should have left based on what you put in, and you can tweak this so you can have a warning for your fuel. So again, racing, something that the MB4 and the MB4 Plus can't do, but the Pros can. And a big difference if we go onto the curve. So if we go to his curve setup on them both, when I find it, oh no, there. So if we go on to curve on the MB4, all we've got is throttle curve, and we've only got a few steps where we can turn this on and we can kind of tweak as curve for as throttle. Whereas on the Pro, we've got the steering curve, you can have Expo, you can have Arc, and then in each one of these you can change just one half of the steering and at a time, or you can have it changing both. You can change where the point is as well. And then we've got a forward curve for as throttle, and again we can have either an arc, we can have multi-points, so you can set each one of these. Especially if you're doing drag racing, you can set the point that it starts off at, so you can actually change it, and you can change the point that it starts from. So I know quite a few of the drag guys have said they'd like to be able to change the point that the throttle actually kicks in at. So like with this, you can have your throttle instantly at nearly 30% or 26 or whatever you want. Does give you a hell of a lot more options on the Pro than what you've got on the MB4 Plus. So certainly we've still got the throttle and dual rates, so we can still change as dual rate and we can still change as exponential. But you don't have anywhere near the sort of control that you'd have on the MB4 Pro Plus. And again, these are carried over from the Pro. So if you're into racing or drag racing or anything like that, there's an awful lot of options for curve and other things that you're just not going to get on the MB4 or MB4 Plus. And then also on the Pro, you've got handle, which lets you plug a games controller in, so an Xbox, PlayStation or PC steering wheel if you like, with pedals. You can plug that into the controller and use that, which you don't get on the MB4 or the MB4 Plus. But pretty much that covers it. The main takeaway from it is, if you have an MB4, the original one, there are features to be gained from upgrading to the MB4 Plus. So your main feature jump from this way would be a brighter screen, quick removable battery, USB-C, head tracking, trainer mode. But the big ones are the screen and the sort of labelling on the channels. And not just for a crawler, but you can have them on everything. Like if you've got the petrol engine RC and you've got your engine cut, you can assign one of these to engine cut and it'll tell you engine on, engine off. So you don't even have to look for the flashing light on your kill switch. All these radios will work with same receivers. Functionality wise, technically, the Pro Plus is the lowest latency. Incidentally, it's also got a more sensitive trigger. So the Pro Plus, I believe, is the only one that's got the slightly more sensitive trigger on it for your throttle and brake. But certainly from the MB4 to the MB4 Plus, you're getting a brighter screen and the channel labels, quick removable battery, USB-C, head tracking and the different wheel and trainer mode. If you've got a Pro, there's not so much to gain from going to Pro Plus. The big one is the screen. You've got USB, you've got head tracking and trainer mode. How much use they're going to be to you, only you can answer that. You've already got your bright screen and everything. All you're gaining on here is software features. The other thing is you've got 20 memories on both these. The Plus models have got 25. But as I say, going from the MB4 Plus to the Pro Plus, it's mainly software that you're looking at. So yes, you get the slightly more advanced throttle trigger sensor. You get the same bright screen, same channel labelings. You've got more functionality, as in a lot more settings on the curves. So certainly for drag RC guys, that'd come in, or racing. You've got a lot more you can tweak with. You've got conditions and logic switches and fuel. And also the ability to plug games controller into it if you wanted to. All these three, you can change the backdrops. The MB4, you can't. You're pretty much just stuck with what you've got. I mean, a big difference is the actual brightness at screen and how easy it is to see outside. These two are far easier than the outgoing models to see. But yeah, it's It's one that I can't make your decision for you. Certainly if you're looking at buying a new one, these aren't available. So the only ones you're going to find is old stock that's not been sold. And unless you're getting a heavy discount on these, I would plumb for the Plus models every time. If you've got an MB4 and you've had it quite a number of years, there is things to be gained from going to the Plus. There's also an awful lot to be gained going to the Pro. Don't forget, these both 8 channel, these have got 18 channel. So yeah, if you're going for complex crawler setups and everything, I would always suggest the Pro is the better radio. Yeah, they're more expensive, but then if you look at the other radios in market, you'd be paying even more money than what the MB4 Pro Plus is for a radio like the Futaba 10PX. But also, you've not got the functionality that you've got on the MB4 Pro Plus. And you're paying a lot more money for it. A big thing with the Flysky radios also is the price at receivers. It's way cheaper than the Sanwa or Futaba. And I do know I'll get in comments people saying, yeah, but you can buy the third-party ones. But a lot of third-party ones, one, I've known racers have issues with them. And if you're racing, you don't want issues. 2, a lot of the third-party ones don't actually support the higher, faster refresh rate standards that you're paying your money for your top-end radio. Whereas all the enhanced receivers, even from the MB4 up, they will all do up to 1000 Hz servos. They'll all do iBus 2. One comment that I've had is Futaba are the only ones that can control ESCs over iBus. It's not true. You've got iBus on all of these. You've also got the new iBus 2, which Futaba can't do. So Futaba can't control the new Hobbywing Axe. They can't control any of the iBus 2 servos. So that's something worth bearing in mind. I've been speaking with the Edge TX guys, and they're hoping to adopt the iBus 2 standard. At the minute, there's Hobbywing, Power HD, MKS, servos, all working with Flysky on iBus 2 control. And if the Edge TX team jump on board with it, we could very quickly see an awful lot more of adoption for that. But all these radios do support it. One thing that is worth considering, because the Plus models have only just been released, you are going to see new additions to the firmware on these. The radios, the non-Plus models, although I have openly said Flysky have been amazing with how long they have supported these with new features, you've got to understand the new radios are out, and these are in a pretty good place where they are. They've had way more functionality added to them than when you first bought them. I would expect a sort of much slower or a stop in the release of firmware updates for the discontinued radios. It's been supported for a long time, and I think Flysky have done more than pretty much any other brand that I've known for supporting a product for a good amount of time and adding a good amount of features. So moving forward, I would expect only the Plus models to get new features added and new firmware, but you never know. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of what you get, the differences between them. These aren't really intended to make everybody with either of these upgrade to it. It's just the market changes. Flysky's got some more advanced stuff, and these, if you like, are the facelift models to keep the radios relevant and up to date, and also address some of the issues that firmware couldn't, which constant complaint from customers saying, I wish the screen were brighter. Try talking to somebody that's paid 600 quid for an M17. They're as difficult to see outdoors as these. So at least Flysky listened. They've gone for a much brighter screen on the new radios. But you can't keep everybody happy, and I'm sure people would have liked a firmware update to be able to make the screen brighter. Unfortunately, it's not physically possible. You can always take backlight out and solder some far brighter LEDs in it and power them direct if you really want to make the screen stupidly bright. Or sell your old radio to somebody that wants it for bashing or just getting into racing. Put the money to the new one. So hopefully that gives you plenty to think about, and you've seen the comparison between them. I think I've covered all the differences and why you may or may not want to upgrade. But let's wrap this one up. So there you have it. I've given you the main differences between them all, why you might want to swap, why you wouldn't want to swap. And one thing you need to remember is, if your current radio does exactly what you bought it for, which on the MB4 and the MB4 Pro, they've had many features added to them in the time that you've owned it. So you've got more of a radio than what you first bought. But if it still works perfectly fine and it still does exactly what you want, and you're not really interested in the features of the new one, then keep the radio you've got. You'll get years of use out of it as long as you look after it. Source Sky, one of the channel sponsors, they supply all spares for them. I've noticed they've just added the wireless charging battery base on their site. There's nothing to stop you with an MB4 buying the upgraded screen, buying the wireless charge base. If you buy the screen, it comes with a new motherboard, so you'd get the MB4 Plus motherboard. Kind of don't work out financially sensible to me, but personally I'd sell the MB4 and buy a Plus. But the options are all there, especially if you've dropped your radio or broken your screen, then yeah, might work out cheaper because your broken radio's not really going to fetch any money. If you're going to fix it, you might as well upgrade it to an MB4 Plus while you're doing it. But there's loads of options out there. Hopefully this has just given you some idea. Both the new radios are absolutely fantastic. There's no doubt in my mind you could use any of them for racing, and I have, and I've done really well with them. Never had problems at any at tracks. But yeah, people have asked me for a comparison video. There you go, there's all four. There's every difference I can think of between them all, so it gives you plenty to think about. And yeah, thanks for watching WTF Rc Cars. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share to friends and family, and I'll catch you again in the next one. What do you think to my dragon?